Tabletop role-playing games thrive on collaboration, but how do you ensure everyone around the table is immersed and invested in the game that's being played? In this video, we're going to talk about how to balance player and character motivations, how to adapt narratives on the fly, and how to keep the party engaged. Let's get to it.
Welcome to Dungeon Brew.
Welcome back, everyone, to Dungeon Brew. We are continuing our series on collaborative storytelling, a major cornerstone in modern-day tabletop role-playing games. In this video, I want to really get into how you build a shared story that keeps everyone engaged, immersed, and most importantly, having fun. The exciting thing about tabletop role-playing games is that they are not scripted. Sure, as a game master, you probably have an outline and an idea of where you want the story to go, but it's a collaborative effort where the game master and the players work together to tell the story. The game master sets the stage, and then the players come in with their choices, their character arcs, and so forth that can really have an impact in what direction the story goes. And so in telling a story around, when you're being collaborative, there are really two main things you want to keep in mind. The goal is twofold. You want to make sure that the players are emotionally and mentally invested in the story, which is their immersion, and then you want to make sure that everyone at the table is enjoying themselves, which is a level of fun. When these two elements are in balance, then your sessions become something that people look forward to and not something they dread. We've all been in that place where you're not really looking forward to gaming night, and that should never be the case when it comes to a tabletop role-playing game. But what happens if someone is not having fun? Well, the nice thing is that unlike game mechanics that can sometimes be rigid and difficult to adjust mid-campaign, your story is flexible. Let's say that you are telling a story where you have this idea of the players becoming these epic heroes. It's a tale of heroism, but the players, some way throughout the story, decide they actually want to join with the villain and be the bad guys. Well, instead of fighting their choices, maybe lean into them. Let the story evolve so that they can join the villain in the story. Now, you might have to call a timeout and bring them together in a non-gaming session and ask, what exactly does the party want to achieve? How do you want to move forward in the story that we're telling? And then making adjustments as the game master to make that a reality. Adaptability, I have to say, does not mean chaos, though. You need consistency in order to maintain immersion. So that's why it's critical to keep certain elements of your world intact. So if you have a magic system or cultural rules or a law and order that's kind of put into place, these have to stay intact as the story shifts, which means that sometimes there are some real-world consequences that the party has to respond to or deal with due to the story that they are wanting to tell. One of the main reasons it is important to keep these systems intact is because it's your responsibility as a game master to not break the suspension of disbelief. This happens when something in the story just seems inconsistent, or I prefer to say unearned. So like maybe a villain has suddenly escaped without any explanation, or maybe there's been a rule that's been bent to force a specific outcome of some kind. You want to avoid this early on. You want to have clear established guidelines for your world that the players know they're playing within. So while they may be able to build certain things within the sandbox, you did create the sandbox in which they're playing in, and so there may be limits of the magic system or how the NPCs behave, which brings us right into motivations, which all of your NPCs should have motivations that they follow pretty clearly. While your characters may have arcs and they may be evolving, your NPCs sometimes are a little bit more flatlined. So Jerry the Baker may never sneak a cake out the window to your party members because it's just against his motivations. He wants to earn the money for that cake or that pie, and so he's always going to take the money for it. Terrible example, but you get my drift. But this does bring us into understanding motivations overall and making sure that these are really clear cut, because this is a foundation to collaboration around the table, is understanding what is driving your players specifically, and then also what is going to be driving their characters. So player motivations are the real world reasons people play. Some enjoy combat, others love role-playing, and some are here for the exploration or problem solving. I personally like the role-playing aspect as well as the exploration aspect when there's puzzles and strategic choices to be made throughout the course of the game. If I'm coming to a game that's just a hack and slash combat aesthetic every single week, I am not going to enjoy that at all. And then we have character motivations. These are the in-game end goals that shape the actions, like seeking treasure, gaining power, or becoming a hero. All of your players should have developed some sort of motivation for their character for what it is that they want to achieve. If you can understand those motivations, then you can design quests, NPCs, and challenges that speak directly to what your players and what their characters want. This keeps everyone invested and ensures that no one feels sidelined. But it can be difficult to keep the party in balance when you have a player's motivations that are pulling them away from the larger group. Maybe they're just bored, or maybe their character's goals are clashing with the party's mission. There's a couple of ways that I handle this. One, I try to make sure that I'm incorporating individual goals into the larger narratives. My best example of this is I ran a campaign once where all of my party members in session 0 had to choose a faction of whom they worked for. And this faction had goals that they were trying to achieve, and the party member, the individual, had goals that aligned with that faction's goals. So while the party had particular missions that they were set out to do every week, they would receive letters from their faction that gave them specific objectives to accomplish that not only met the player's motivations, but also the character's motivations in each session. So this kept the party very well aligned, even though they were oftentimes trying to accomplish different things. So again, you're incorporating the individual goals into the larger narrative. The second thing is having an open conversation. Maybe if the player isn't engaged, you need to sit down and actually just talk with them and find out what it is that they want from the game, and then adapt the story to meet their needs. Oftentimes the characters want a little bit more battle, or a little bit more roleplay, or a little bit more exploration. There's something they're just not getting out of the gaming sessions, and it's feeling dull to them. And so it may be a challenge to you as a game master to just add some more variety into the game and be able to tell a better story with that particular player. I just want to end this video by talking a little bit about session 0 and why it's essential to this entire process, because a lot of this work actually begins in session 0 before the campaign even starts. It allows you to sit down with your players and understand their goals and their preferences. It allows you to discuss their character backstories, what the motivations are for those characters, and what is really going to immerse those characters within the game. Do they all have a place within the party? Are there going to be any conflicts that you need to adjust for? How are they going to make sure they're going to see their way from the beginning to the end of the campaign? And then also just setting the tone as the game master for what the game is going to be, what mechanics you're using, what the themes are going to be. What does the sandbox actually look like that the players are going to be playing in, and do they all understand those boundaries that you've put into place? And of course, this takes some fine-tuning in the first few sessions of every tabletop role-playing game as you really try to get the story to align with your group's dynamic, but you want to begin that process in session 0. Alright, I hope that this video has been engaging and helpful for you as a game master. I look forward to seeing you again in the next one. Take care.
Dungeon